Welcome to Industrial Marketing Live. I'm Erin Burish, a senior strategist at the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76 and one of your IML hosts. Today, we have AI and SEO researcher Dale Bertrand to talk to us about how to level up your SEO game in the AI age. Dale is the founder and CEO of Fire and Spark, which helps people transform their SEO content into high ROI assets. So, Dale, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about your company and your background with SEO.
Yeah, so well, thank you for having me here today, Erin. Like it's always fun to talk to my people about SEO and AI and how everything is changing because marketing and the internet, and the inbound marketing playbook, as we were talking about before, is definitely changing. But very quickly, in terms of my background, I studied engineering undergrad and I worked in a manufacturing facility, like my first job out of school. And then from there, went on to work in software and then switched over to marketing. Now I run a marketing agency in Boston where we primarily do SEO. And we've been using a number of AI tools for a number of different things to accelerate our creativity and our marketing results, really, at the end of the day.
Awesome. So, obviously, we have an audience of industrial marketers here, and you have a little bit of a background there as well. What do you think is unique about this SEO conversation in the industrial space?
Yeah, well, so if you're not selling like mass consumer product like shoes or something that has a ton of volume, then you're in a space where there are low volume keywords, you've got longer sales cycles, you're building content for technical buyers. I mean, when I worked as an engineer, I would hit the back button on anything that didn't look like it was written by an engineer. So you can kind of smell marketing speak, and marketing speak is all over the web, especially content that is purpose built for Google, not really for technical buyers that we might be pursuing. So for industrial marketing, like we want to make sure that we've got processes to create that content, to write that marketing copy where it sounds like it's written for engineers by engineers or for the technical audience by the technical audience that you're targeting.
And could you tell us a bit more about the importance of authority in SEO, outside of just having the reader know that you are a legitimate source?
Yeah, because when we say authority for SEO, we want our customers to find us and see what we do and trust us. But in order to get that traffic in the first place, Google needs to trust us. And for Google to trust us, what they're looking for is that we're a brand that is trustworthy. We have expertise in the space. We've got traction in the marketplace. And that's really high level of saying, like, because at the end of the day, Google's looking for technical signals of these things, that we treat our customers well, that we're well known in the space, that we have I call it the company you keep, which is that you're well positioned in your market. So what Google will see is Google will see people landing on your website and staying there and reading multiple pages. So that's building your authority, but that's engagement at the end of the day. So if people aren't bouncing, they're engaged, and that's building your authority. And then also Google can see the content on your site. So if your expertise is in water filters, let's say industrial water filters, Google is expecting to see information on your site that it has seen on other brands' websites, other informational sites on the same topic. So Google will measure your authority and expertise based on the topics that you cover. And it's interesting there because Google wants you to be narrow in the sense that you have expertise in that field, but also Google wants you to comprehensively and broadly cover the information and your expertise in that field. And that's how you're proving to Google that you're an authority in that field. And then also, like I said, that what Google wants to see is the relationships you have in the company you keep. So what trade shows are you part of? Like what organizations are you a part of? Industry trade groups. What shows are you speaking at? Things like that. And Google's looking for the technical artifacts of those relationships online.
Yeah, that's a really broad scope of what Google is considering an authority. I don't know if everyone really realizes just how much goes into that and just how much of it is aligned with just a good user experience.
Yeah, that's also a big part of it, because one of the big pillars of authority is engagement with your content. So when people land on the site, do they find what they're looking for, or do they hit the back button? And a lot of that gets down to, like, if you were targeting. So I did some marketing for GrabCAD, and back in the day it was a community for engineers. And in order for the engineers not to hit the back button when they landed on one of our pages, they really needed to see that this was all content for them, written by engineers for engineers, and that's a big part of the experience. And then Google's able to measure that by looking at engagement with the website. Those are like the technical artifacts of basically your appeal to the market that you're going after, and your relevance to the keywords that you're optimizing for.
I'm curious, Dale, on your opinion, like how much of that authority can be like earned through tactics, and how much of it do you think like has to happen naturally?
It's all the same thing. So the way that I think about it is, at the end of the day, Google's looking at these, technical signals that are really just proxies for your authority in the space. Like, are you well known? Do your customers like you? Do they come back? All of those things. So if you're doing the right things in terms of building a business that is attracting customers and building trust and building traction in the marketplace, that's step one, and that is necessary but not sufficient. In addition to that, you need to make sure that Google sees it. And that's why we're doing technical optimization on the site, publishing the right content, doing content partnerships with trade groups, trade publications, conferences and shows, and making sure if we speak at a conference that there are artifacts of it on our website and on the conference's website, backlinks, all of that stuff. Those are the technical signals, but you need to actually be a business worthy of traffic in the first place, and for it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to transition a little bit to start talking about the AI piece of this, because obviously this is top of everyone's mind. It's something you talk about a lot. And it's changing things in a couple of different areas, but maybe we start with like Google's perspective. Like, how is AI changing Google search, and why does that matter to us?
Well, it's really important that we separate two different things. So one is how are marketers using AI to do marketing of all kinds. And then the other side of it is, how is Google using generative AI in their search results? And how's that going to change content marketing and SEO and all of that? So starting first with like how Google's changing. Google knows that the web is broken in many ways, like the fact that a lot of content is just crap and searchers don't always get the answers that they're looking for. The one example I always like to give is, like, if you're searching for something, what Google's going to give you is a research project, because it's going to give you 10 links, and Google's giving you the privilege of reading all those pages and trying to find the answer on your own. So what Google really wants to do is just give you the answer. And for us as marketers, Google wants to give our customers the answer without them coming to our website. And that is potentially disruptive, obviously. Disruptive to the inbound marketing playbook, where we're creating a lot of top of funnel content, trying to get people to our website, cookie them for retargeting, or grab their email address and hit them up with email marketing. We were really relying on Google for top of the funnel awareness and visibility to get those people to initially come to our website. But in a world where Google is answering questions, not giving them links where they come directly to our website, then our tactics need to change. And we're not there yet. I think that's really important. Like in 2025, inbound marketing still works the way it did, over the last several years, but we're expecting it to decline, not go away, in terms of the effectiveness of the top of the funnel. And that's really because of Google's AI overviews. Like, many of you probably saw Google's AI overviews when they were launched in the US in May. And back then, I think they were showing up for 30, 40% of informational searches. Like, everybody was seeing them. but Google had problems with accuracy, and there were some famous, hilarious screw ups where generative AI was giving just the wrong answer. So what Google did was they pulled back on that. Now, today, it's like 10% of informational queries that are showing an AI overview. But Google really showed their hand. Like, they basically showed the fact that this is the direction they're trying to go. And the only limitation they have at this point is the technology needs to improve. So 6 months from now, we'll probably be there, definitely at some point in 2025, where they will expand those overviews back up to 30, 40% of informational queries. And what that means is we're just not going to get as many clicks. But what we're expecting is that the clicks that we do get to our website are more qualified. They're higher quality traffic, and they're basically middle of the funnel rather than top of the funnel traffic in terms of where they are in their journey. And so we expect that traffic to convert at a higher rate and be more qualified. Now, we're not there yet, so we haven't been able to measure any of this stuff, but that's what we're expecting going into 2023.
Perfect. Yeah, that was a great insight. And we've got a couple questions in the chat as well that people might want to come on and offer, if that's all right. Daniel, do you want to come on and ask your question?
Sure. So, hey, how's it going, everybody? I've noticed that generated content performs not as well as like content that I go and capture. So is that something that like the algorithm recognizes, or is that something that like the public or customer kind of subconsciously know that, hey, it's AI generated, so I'm not gonna interact with it, or where I see it as less desirable content?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics here, because when we're talking about AI generated content, that means something different to everybody. Like, some people are going to ChatGPT and they're saying, write a blog article, and then cut and paste. So 60 seconds later, they have a blog article up on their website. Like, that's the wrong way to use AI. And then other people, when they're talking about AI generated content, they're using it more the way I am, which is to using AI to edit my content, rewrite sentences when I feel like I'm stuck, and then to evaluate maybe logical errors in my thinking when I'm doing writing. And that's, in my opinion, the right way to use AI content, or AI for content. So Daniel, to get to your question, like, is Google penalizing AI generated content? Google isn't directly penalizing it. Like, what Google's looking at the end of the day is how people engage with your content. So if it's true that the typical visitors to your website are seeing the AI generated content and it's just not as good, so they don't stay on the page as long, or they hit that back button, that's what Google will notice. Google also has some algorithms to notice how well written it is, like how complex the language is, which it could demote it based on that. And then there's just a lot of things there, but it's not directly looking to find AI generated content and demote it just because it's AI generated content. Now, with that said, there are many SEO and content marketing folks who have tried generating complete websites, like 1,000 pages, with just by pressing one button and having AI just generate an entire website. Those websites tend to not do very well because the content is low quality for a lot of different reasons. And low quality means something different for every market, for every purpose. Sometimes it means that it's just not unique, or sometimes it means that there's no real like personal perspective or data to back it up, or it could mean that it's written at a graduate school level, so it's hard for the average person to get the information out of it. Like, there's a lot of different reasons why people might not engage with a piece of content, whether it's written by AI or assisted by AI or not.
Great. And Dale also had a question, if you want to hop in.
Yeah, hey, really appreciate this, Dale. It's a great presentation so far. I was curious about, since Google generates its revenue by click-throughs, I've noticed certainly in the past 6 months or so, the answers are being presented. A lot of the information that you're looking for is being presented by Google. There's not really any click-through needed to go get the information. So I mean, obviously Google doesn't need the money, but I just wondered how that, as they move forward, will that affect their model of having it driving traffic to your site for conversions, or how do we approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like the way to think about it for Google, Google's trying to thread the needle. Like they've got a wildly popular and profitable search engine. So they want to keep people using the search engine, and they want to keep people clicking on ads, because that's how they make their money. That's how they're going to buy a third, fourth, and fifth private jet. So they definitely want to keep the advertising model viable for them. But at the same time, they're being forced to make changes. They're forced to make changes because Bing is building a generative AI search engine. And then there's also perplexity.ai that is it's a search engine that works really well. I use it a lot. And then ChatGPT, they're coming out with their own search engine called SearchGPT at some point later this year. So Google's afraid that they might lose their market share. At the end of the day, the only thing they care about is their advertising revenue, regardless of what they say. That is the only thing they care about. And one way to keep their advertising revenue is to keep people using Google so that they don't go to use these other search engines because these other search engines are better. And then the other thing they need to do to maintain their advertising revenue is they need to figure out what the ad formats are going to be for the generative AI search results. So when when your customers that you're targeting are doing a conversational search using Google, they're going to ask follow-up questions. They're going to be much more educated by the time they get to your website, by the time that they actually click. But the question is, how's Google going to make money off that? And that's what they've got billions of dollars and hundreds, probably thousands of PhDs trying to figure out like what that equilibrium is going to be between revenue and actually helping people find the answers that they need so that people keep coming back to Google instead of going to one of the alternatives.
But it just seems like they're cannibalizing their own revenue stream.
Yeah, and that's the
not a bad thing.
dilemma.
They're adjusting that. Maybe it's just about awareness ads, but when you just see an ad and you don't act on it, then they don't generate any revenue. So it's interesting to see where that'll head.
And that's a classic innovator's dilemma, which is they have a wildly popular business model. They don't want to disrupt it, but they have to. But they need to make a decision as to how far they're willing to go to disrupt their current business. And they're hoping they don't have to go that far.
Yeah, great question. I think it's like, what's Google going to do? It does feel like they're figuring it out. I know Kevin put something in the chat that he's even heard that Google may be testing ads within AI overview results, and like what type of, payment model would that even have? Like there's a lot that could change. So speaking of that, how can marketers adapt their SEO strategies with, the introduction of these AI summaries?
So one of the big things is so there's the AI summaries, and then the other thing is to make sure that you're using and leveraging these tools, which is really important.
Mm-hmm.
But for the AI summaries, when they start to roll out, we're thinking about like 2025. What we're doing is we're targeting content to the middle of the funnel, not the top of the funnel. So top of the funnel is literally something like, what is a water filter, or what is an industrial water filter? And it sounds absurd, right? Because if I sell industrial water filters, am I really going to get a customer out of somebody who's like asking what is an industrial water filter? I'm selling to engineers and engineering managers who actually know what these products are, and they have more technical questions. So when you're targeting that top of the funnel traffic that is likely to diminish when Google expands their AI overviews, when you're targeting that top of the funnel traffic, the first thing to admit is that traffic didn't convert very well anyway. Like it allowed us to cookie people for retargeting. It allowed us to maybe get their email address, but those weren't the people that were making a buying decision. Those were the people that were curious about something that is vaguely relevant to what we do. But the middle of the funnel is people who are asking more specific questions, more specific technical questions. These are people who are more likely to be the buyers that we're going after. And the type of content that we can build for that middle of the funnel are things like comparison pages, very specific FAQ pages with technical questions that our buyers would ask. And then also what I call niche buying guides. So if you're selling industrial water filters, and maybe you're selling an industrial water filter to and I'm making this up, but it's a metal forging plant. I'm making that up, but it's a very specific application for the industrial water filters. Like, you would have a niche buying guide for that very specific application for what you sell, and that would be a page that answers the type of questions your customers ask when they're making a buying decision. Full stop. Like, instead of the fluffy top of funnel blog articles that were never really driving converting traffic in the first place, and we're going to lose that traffic when Google answers those questions for us and stops sending those searches. But that middle of the funnel traffic, any type of comparison, you might be comparing your products or comparing your products to a competitor's product, or we worked with a manufacturer or a contract manufacturing facility where they had comparison pages comparing different materials, different processes, different machines, different CNC machines. There's so many different ways you could do comparisons. And the reason why I love comparison pages is because people who are interested in those comparisons are making a buying decision. And then the last thing I'll say about the buying guides, what I was calling the niche buying guides, is I love this buying guide mindset. I talk about that a lot. When you're writing a buying guide, it puts you in the right mindset to answer the questions your customers are asking when they're making a buying decision. And you know what those questions are because you talk to your customers. So I like to think of every page on my website as a buying guide, because that puts me in the right frame of mind, where I'm trying to answer purchase decisions. I'm not just trying to give information to someone who doesn't even understand what we do, because those are the wrong visitors in the first place.
So tell me if this is just too optimistic of an outlook, but it seems like we're almost able to just let the AI functions take over creating that high level funnel content that isn't probably driving the most conversions for us anyway. Like, kind of let them take that burden off of our shoulders a little bit. Is that too optimistic, or does someone still need to be creating that high level content to feed into the AI for it to be able to answer the questions effectively?
Yeah, well, we don't know. We don't know where that's going to end up. So there are two extremes. There's an extreme where Google's answering every question, and so we as marketers stop writing that content. Subject matter experts stop writing that content, and now Google doesn't have anything to train on to do those answers. That's an extreme. We're not going to go there because it doesn't make sense that we would go there. And then the other extreme is where Google just sends traffic, forces your customers to do a research project every time they want to get an answer. And that's also an extreme where we're going to end up somewhere in the middle. And I don't know what that equilibrium is going to be. But when you think about it, it's going to be less about informational articles, the type of articles that have already been written online. And it's going to be more about subject matter experts writing about their unique perspective on topics related to the products and services that they sell. So for me, I have an SEO agency, so I sell SEO services for a living. Nobody wants me to go online and write about what is a title tag, what is a meta description tag, what is a web page. I mean, it just gets ridiculous after a while. Who cares? Google knows, and you can find that information on the web. But instead, if I'm giving my unique perspective on Google's recent changes based on my 20 years of experience following Google and doing SEO, that's something that my customers would be interested in, and Google would be interested in, showing that unique perspective. So like, really the way to think about it is like Google's AI search engine, like Google, like my friend Andy Crestodina says this all the time, where AI doesn't have friends and you do, and AI doesn't have a unique perspective and you do. AI can't tell a story about the data and the trends, but you can, because you're working with your customers, you're talking to your customers. AI doesn't have relationships with your customers and the experience that you have in your industry. And so to the extent that any of that is unique and has not already been shared online, it's gold from an information gain perspective. And we want to make sure that we're getting those ideas out of our subject matter experts. And then for those of us who are marketers and not subject matter experts, you want to be talking to your customers. Sometimes that means manning the phones or reading going along with one of your application engineers to a site visit or something like that, so you can understand the questions your customers are asking and making sure that your marketing materials and marketing messaging is reflecting the answers to those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. What about other forms of content? I know that's something you've talked about too. A lot of that was, centered around like written, need to focus on kind of the mid funnel, but what about things like video or other, I don't know, other forms of content?
Yeah, there's a lot out there. So old school, we were doing a lot of blog articles. Then we moved on to written content that was just better formatted for conversion and subject matter expertise, like the niche buying guides, FAQs that are for customer acquisition, not customer service, and then also the comparison pages. Then one level up from that is really video, like you're saying, Aaron. We've started doing a lot more video for my agency. I mean, I'm recording my face on video right now. So if I drop any knowledge bombs, you might see it on YouTube as a short, because we know that we need to do video. For everybody on this call, like video testimonials from your customers, getting your SMEs on video. It's hard to kind of get the momentum to get started with video. I mean, you got to get good audio and make sure that you're recording at the right times. But once you get going, it's not as hard as it seems, because you can do some really helpful talking head videos on a variety of different topics that serve your customers very well. And then the next step beyond that is something that I'm just getting into. AI tools have made it a lot easier to build interactive, we'll call them widgets or apps on different pages on your website. And those are things like pricing tools or estimation tools or configurators. Like, these are things that I used to hire a developer to build on a site. And we can generate them with the right prompts using ChatGPT or Claude. I'll have it generate a pricing tool and give it a spreadsheet, so it has information on how to do the pricing, and then tell it that the tool should have these drop downs and maybe a number of components or something like that. And then you hit the give me a price button, and it'll generate that as like a JavaScript widget that lives on a page. And I literally just FTP it over to my website. And now all of a sudden I have a useful tool that I could promote to prospective customers. And that's new as of the last like month, that you've been able to do that thing really, really easily for marketing content. So I believe that these one-page apps are going to explode in terms of SEO content and marketing content as marketers figure out how to use their creativity to build more of these interactive widgets. And I'll just make one more statement about that. Like, I did a project for outside of the industrial space. This was a mortgage company, but we built a tool that would help them figure out, like, help customers figure out like what their mortgage payment's going to be, like a typical mortgage calculator. But the wonderful thing about those tools is once you get that information from your customer on your website, in that case, it was dumping them directly into the mortgage application. So if you think about that for the folks on this call, any type of interactive tool that you can build like that, not only are they much easier to build now with a tool like ChatGPT, but you can have people, when they press that button, get whatever answer it is that they're looking for. You can dump them right into a calendar to talk to somebody on your team, or into an application, or whatever it is, whatever you want the next step to be for conversion. So those types of tools, they're not just easy to promote and get you that engagement and backlinks that Google's looking for, but they help tremendously with conversion too at the end of the day, which is huge.
Yeah, I think like there's so many possibilities there in industrial. Like, one thing that comes to mind is like OEE, right? Like, a lot of times we have formulas or like calculations where we know like, okay, our product improves OEE by X%. And then if you input like variable costs into a calculator, you could literally provide a tool that helps your customer roughly estimate like how much money they could save by, the additional efficiency that is provided by your product. And that's super powerful. Even if it's not an exact number, it's almost like personalized social proof in a way, like personalized hypothetical social proof with some of those tools that you could build.
Yeah, it's insane. And we have somebody on this call. If it's all right with you, Aaron, I'll show my screen just very quickly to show them one of the apps that I built.
Go for it.
And this is, I'm trying to make sure I share the right screen. It always gets hairy when I'm trying to share something on the fly. But can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So this is, oh, sorry. This is an app that I built for content marketer on my team, where and I'm going to add some more buttons to it so we can do more things. But what it's going to do is it's going to create a prompt that I can give to ChatGPT that will generate a LinkedIn post. But it's going to generate that prompt based on some options that we have. Like these are templates that I have for, and I wonder what it does. It doesn't do anything right now. But what it'll do is there'll be drop downs for the style guide that I want to use for the LinkedIn post, a drop down for the template that I want to use. And then it'll also add some words to avoid, because I have a whole list of words that I don't want AI to use when it's generating content for me. And then when I click this generate prompt button, it'll generate the prompt down here that I can cut and paste into ChatGPT. Now, I thought of this because I was doing exactly this, cutting and pasting from various documents. And I thought to myself, I should just have AI generate this little one-page app where I could click on the elements that I want for this prompt rather than having to cut and paste. And this is an example of like a tool that is like a tiny little tool that is very helpful to me as a marketer. It saves me maybe 10 minutes a day, right? But it was so easy for me to generate with Claude. I generated this one in Claude. And then I'll refine it to add the other buttons that I want onto it. But creating things like this is just really, really easy now with checkboxes, and it can do calculations in the back end, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And we've been talking a lot about how AI is changing, but how is search behavior changing? Like, how are the queries and how people are going to be collecting information changing because of all this?
Oh, and I love that question, because in a lot of ways, your customer's search behavior matters more than what Google does. Because we've been talking a lot about how Google is changing, but what really matters is like the engineers, the technical buyers that you guys are going after. Where are they searching and how are they searching? And is that going to change? I'll give you one quick little story here. Like I learned pretty quickly a month ago, like anytime I talk to somebody who calls me and says, "Hey Dale, we want SEO help," I'll ask them, how did you find us? And obviously I'm asking them, how did they find us? Because I'm trying to figure out like if our marketing is working and what channels are working. Instead, going forward, what I've started to do is to ask them, how did you search for an SEO consultant? And it's a different question getting at kind of the same thing. But what they'll tell me is they'll say, "Oh, well, I use ChatGPT a lot. So I went in there and I asked it, does it know any SEO consultants? Then I've been playing around with perplexity.ai and it gave me an answer. Then I went to Google and asked it what was its best." And I get like just better answers by asking that question. So I just want to throw that out there. Ask your customers, how did you search for blank? And see if you can start to hear from them some changes in search behavior. They might be using different search engines other than Google. They might use a channel that you don't know about. They might have looked at YouTube to figure out how to fix something or do something, which you didn't realize. They might tell you that they search for a very long, complex query. Like I used to search for data sheets on specific parts, but instead I might ask Google or ChatGPT to find me a part with very specific voltage tolerances that would work well with this other part that I'm trying to design into the system. That's a complex query. So we want to know if our customers are starting to type those complex queries into Google or some other search engine. The other thing we want to know is if they're doing like follow-ups, they're having a conversation. And the most sophisticated customers out there right now, I did this once. Like I was looking for a part, it was an electronic component, and I knew that I wanted it from a specific vendor, but I asked ChatGPT if there were any other vendors that sold similar parts. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me a table that compared the specs in the data sheets for the two different parts. when I worked as an engineer, I would, find data sheets and I do that comparison in my head. Maybe I'd take some notes, try to figure out which ones would work best in my system. But now I can have Google just generate from multiple data sets that it found. Well, I can have Gemini do it, or I can have ChatGPT do it, or Perplexity do it. So we want to figure out if our customers are doing these things. They're probably not doing it much right now, but honestly, we don't really know. So we want to ask them how they search for our type of product or service. Also, we want to look at Search Console. In Search Console, we can see the keywords that are driving traffic to our website. And what we want to look for there is if those keywords are getting longer and more complex. Because our customers are getting used to using a conversational search engine like ChatGPT, and that's why that might happen. So those are a couple things that we could look at. And then also it's possible that different pages on your website are getting traffic. As Google expands their AI overviews, it's possible on many sites that we'll see less traffic for blog articles, more traffic for maybe marketing landing pages or product pages, something like that. But those are the types of shifts in traffic that we're expecting to see over the next few years. But it's going to be different for every brand, everybody on this website, and it's going to be different for every market that you're selling into, how the customer search behavior is changing.
Yeah, AI is totally teaching us, like we've all done this, like gone into ChatGPT and given it like a generic prompt and it's like, oh, this is not what I was looking at before. Like you get out what you put in. It's all about like making better prompts. And that is also informing our search behavior in other places too. Like happens all the time in Google. You mentioned you're looking for a simple answer and you get a research project because you need to be, kind of more specific in those searches with the way this is all evolving.
And one thing I'll add to this is like the way we search right now in Google with like maybe a 2-word or a 3-word keyword, we learned that. That's learned behavior that Google taught us how to search that way. And the new tools that we're all going to be starting to use over the next few years are going to teach us a different way to search. And we need to know how our customers are adapting and how we need to adapt our content for that.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's all internet media literacy. We had a couple more questions about the app building that you were just talking about. One from Kelly, and I don't know, maybe this is a rabbit hole we don't want to get into on this episode, but are there any like implications from like a copyright legal perspective when you're using AI to like build codes or widgets like that?
Yes. It's hard to know off the top of my head what they might be. Like obviously, if you're using AI to write content, AI might plagiarize. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So you need to be very careful with that. I've always been in a habit of checking everything that that somebody at my agency writes for plagiarism. With the applications, I just don't know. I don't know off the top of my head what the issues might be, but I always assume there are issues because we don't know. Nobody's gotten in trouble yet to figure it out.
Yeah, always a good idea to be diligent when there's, new tools that are, especially when they're pulling from multiple sources like this. Yeah, I'm just looking in the chat, see what other questions we have, and then we'll try and wrap up in the next couple of minutes here, because I know Dale is trying to catch a train. So we'll just ask one more from the chat from Aya. She says, does Google combine the inputs to regular Google search and Gemini prompts? For example, the content in the people also asked section on SERP include what people asked in Gemini?
So we don't really know. I mean, what that would be is, Google has, google.com that we all use, but then Google also has Gemini that you can use just like ChatGPT. So the question is, what's the relationship between the two? The relationship that I'm aware of is Google is using Gemini to write the AI overviews. And the way to think about that is and this is a very simplified explanation of how it's working, but the way to think about it is that when you do a search in Google, Google's finding a bunch of web pages, and it's using Gemini to summarize those web pages to give you an answer, and then it's showing you an AI overview at the top based on that summary. That's a very simplified way of looking at it. But when you look at it that way, then the answer for getting into an AI overview is really SEO at the end of the day, to make sure that Google trusts your website and you have information that that your customers are looking for. The way the AI overviews work today, they're not usually showing specific brands or giving brand recommendations. ChatGPT and Perplexity will give you brand recommendations, but Google's AI overview won't. The reason why that's important to us is because we want to be the recommended brand. If somebody says, what is the best brand for this particular component or whatever it is that they're looking for, like, we obviously want that to be our brand. And the way we do it is with a combination of SEO, but then also making sure that we're answering the right questions online in the right formats that Google can understand. And then also make sure that we're building our credibility. That's little things like citing sources, making sure that we include the letters after people's names when we're working with subject matter experts, and also building our credibility with Google by the company we keep, like I said earlier on.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Dale, judging by the chat, this has been a highly intriguing episode. Unfortunately, we can't get to all the questions that we have in there. There's a lot, and we have to wrap up here soon. But how can people get in touch with you if they need to, ask any follow-up questions, or do they just want to, keep track of your career?
Well, so I'm pretty accessible, and I love talking about this stuff. I love talking to marketers about SEO and how everything's changing. So you can reach out to me directly, dale@fireandspark.com. I put my email address in the chat here. If we didn't get to your question, send it to me. If you want to talk about SEO, let's talk about SEO. I run my agency in Boston. We're 25 people, and we only do SEO strategies. So happy to talk to people about that. But yeah, I love this stuff. So let's talk.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Awesome. And we'll also have Dale on the Manufacturing Marketer podcast. I'm not sure when that episode will come out, but we're recording it next week, so we'll maybe even get to some of those questions there. But thank you so much for joining us. I agree with the chat. This was a great episode. It's so interesting to talk about this and the future of AI and SEO, and just how we need to think about content differently. It's still all about reaching our customers at the end of the day. Couple of announcements and invitations to wrap up here. Please join us in the Industrial Marketing Collective. That is an online platform that kind of houses this community, the collective. It has, discussion boards. There's also, paid versions that has a full comprehensive course, weekly office hours, things like that. And then the Industrial Marketing Summit 2025. I believe it's still in early bird registration, or it may have just ended. Either way, registration is open. That'll be in Austin, Texas again, February 26th through 28th. And then our next episode of IML will be joined by Grace Wright, strategy director here at Gorilla, to share her tips about managing a better website lead handoff. So basically, when you get a lead from your website, how should that get handed to sales? What automation should you have in your CRM, just to make sure things aren't slipping through the cracks? So that's kind of what we've got coming up for you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.